Hello, everyone. Welcome to the GLOBIS Stories podcast. I'm here with Joao Celestino, a former GLOBIS student, and we are here to talk about his story. So, welcome. Welcome to the podcast.
Nice to meet you. Nice to be here.
So, what exactly brought you to Japan in the first place?
Oh, we're going straight into it.
No preamble.
What brought me to Japan in the first place is, of course, GLOBIS. Like, I've always been interested in Japanese culture. I almost got a minor in it.
Oh, wow.
But the thing is, I had to stop because a person I was dating at the time told me, like, if you learn Japanese and you go overseas, you break up. Like, we're breaking up. Well, you broke up anyway. But yeah,
That's
so
rough.
I've always been interested in Japan, culture, both traditional and a bit more modern culture, history, and more contemporary one.
Like, what aspects were immediately interesting to you?
For me, the very fact that they were able to stand as a nation, like with all the, what do you call this? This is way back, like Nobunaga,
Oh, right.
Tokugawa
during-
Ieyasu stuff.
Okay.
So that kind of bit like really interested me, and I guess because they were able to stand as a nation alone, their culture is quite different from
Yes.
West, from even my country, colonized countries as well, and of course anime.
Of course. Yeah. That's a big one for most people. So that kind of interests you into Japan in the first place, and then you were studying Japanese. And then how did you find out about GLOBIS in particular?
This was way after graduating, probably around almost 5 years after graduating. So after finishing my undergrad and not having Japanese skills, especially, I didn't need to practice it. I was working in corporate in the Philippines.
Doing what?
I was working in a recruitment firm / HR consulting firm.
Okay.
So my role started out as a digital marketing strategist, but then given the nature of the company, apart from digital marketing strategy, they also made me do new business and people development, like training, new staff, all of that.
Okay.
But the specific part that GLOBIS enters the picture is the new business. So when it comes to professional development, like a certification, HR-based certification, master's degrees, or HR-based systems, applicant tracking systems, AI recruitment tools, my company was entering that field through through partnerships. GLOBIS almost became a partner.
Oh, I see. Your company approached GLOBIS, or GLOBIS approached your company?
I believe Fukushatsu, like the vice president of the company at the time, was able to meet. He didn't give me the name, but he met someone in GLOBIS, and he went up to me and said, "Joao, this might be one of the MBAs we might be able to offer to partners in the Philippines." Suffice to say, we didn't end the partnership.
Right.
But then it entered my radar.
Okay.
Definitely.
So then you became interested in the university, and you decided to pursue it.
It was, I think, hands down, I needed a master's degree. At least for me, it's part of my career path. It's part of what I want to have. And GLOBIS definitely entered my radar as one of the MBAs that I could look at, check out. But then the way it set itself apart really from the other MBAs I was able to talk to was through the alumni.
Okay. In the Philippines,
In the Philippines, even sometimes here. Like I'd visit the campus. But through MBA fairs as well, I'd meet a lot of alumni from other universities. One thing that I found lacking was personal mission.
Ah, I see.
Yeah. The other MBAs say they have it, say they develop it, but whenever I ask a graduate, how is it helping? I'm not sure what my personal mission is.
Yeah.
Like my career is better now. Like I'm making more money, all of these things, and I'm like, yeah, I want those things, of course.
Right.
But I think personal mission always comes first.
That's the forefront of GLOBIS's education.
And that's the forefront of GLOBIS, yeah.
Yeah. So, speaking of that, what was your personal mission at the time, and has that changed?
When I first entered, I think it was very, 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 very childish. After I graduated, it was much more defined. But I think it's still quite up there.
Okay. Are you willing to share?
Yeah. My first one was I want to be able to create better leaders in my country.
That doesn't sound very childish to me.
Childish in the sense that what do you mean?
It's not specific.
It's not specific. It's not defined. It's not. I can't also tell really a story behind it. But eventually, when I graduated, this one might be a bit strange for some people to hear. But my kokorozashi, from the moment I graduated until now, is to become a catalyst for human evolution.
Okay. In what way?
Specifically now, I work a lot in the field of L&D, HR and people development, and making sure that people are able to basically do their jobs much better than they normally would. We look at iPhones, for example, and we think of iPhones as, what was it like before iPhones? People were using maybe phones a bit more, landlines, whatever. But then the moment that came out, I think as a species, there was a sense of evolution that did happen. Like ease of life, all of these things. Now, in the space of L&D specifically, and what I'm trying to do right now in my company, and I think also sometimes with GLOBIS talks, is how can I help people evolve their mindset or their mind towards, whatever, towards kokorozashi, I guess, their own kokorozashi.
So like kind of enabling them to achieve their own dreams and decide their own dreams. And for the audience at home, what is LMD?
Sorry. L&D is learning and development.
Okay.
So other names for it is training and development, talent development. Essentially, it's what companies do to make sure that their staff has a kind of employee journey throughout the company wherein they are growing. They're going not just in one position, but they're evolving and they're growing and they're becoming more ready for the next step.
Now that you've defined your kokorozashi, your aim is to become a facilitator through learning and development.
Exactly.
How's that affecting your current work?
I think that's the reason why I wake up every day for work. Why I'm very, very happy working in my current company. The space of L&D, specifically in my organization, there's a lot of I would say wiggle room, free space for me to really try to see what works, what doesn't work in terms of people development, in terms of training people. So I think at least within my company, there's that strong support both from my managers and my upper management that Joao's doing the right thing. We trust him. When he makes mistakes, he figures out how to fix it, or he figures things out, basically to better develop people. So within my company, I think it's working quite well. I'm able to really kind of slowly evolve the company's gen pop, or general population within the company.
Do you have any specific concrete examples of a way that you've been able to do that?
I think without going into insider torihiki, insider trading.
Yeah, we don't want that.
Without going there.
Yeah.
The very public information that we have is LMS implementation.
Okay.
That's one thing. So given that the company is a global company, it does need a system to centralize all of the training that's happening globally. Most companies, or some companies, might think, why do we need to centralize this? What's the value of this kind of data, of making sure everyone's on one platform when it comes to learning?
Right.
For us, one, ramp time of new hires.
Like how long it takes for them to get
Exactly.
going.
Yeah. For them to be able to make their first sales, all of these things. There have been quite, at least from the data we've analyzed, quite a lot of improvements in that regard. Second one, since the platform's there, it's a bit simpler to implement let's say, leadership development training. Or high potential training, things like that, because everything is centralized. Without a centralized way to develop people, the main gap you will always have is someone learning from, let's say, a new hire in, let's say, India, would not be at the same level as a new hire in the US if you don't have things centralized.
Because things that they do day to day differ so much between the countries.
Exactly. It doesn't become an apples to apples comparison. But because you have things a bit more centralized, especially through training, you can say, okay, because we're training our employee in India this way, and we're training our employee in the US the same way, they have the same opportunities to go up through the ladder, and the distance they both have to the CEO, if that's the goal of the employee, is around the same.
Okay. But I also wanted to ask you about Japan. So you came here to study, and then you're working here. It seems like you want to live here long term.
The rest of my life.
Do you have any advice for people who are thinking a similar thing?
I think the main advice I would have is, as early as possible, take off the rose-tinted glasses.
Okay.
I've been asked quite often by friends back home, Chow, I want to move to Japan. I want to build my career here or something like that. And I always ask them, are you wanting to do this out of whim or have you planned things out? Do you know how difficult it is? So they ask me, Chow, is life there easier? Do you have no difficulties? I'm like, no, dude. Anywhere you go around the world, there's always challenges, there's always difficulties. It's just you choose these difficulties. So first and foremost, I think we have to understand what difficulties would you face in Japan, and are you willing to face those difficulties as well? Are those difficulties you want to face, are you willing to trade it off for whatever comfort you have back home or whatever community you have back home? And if the answer is yes, come. Some difficulties might be of course, language barrier.
Yeah.
That's always going to be one of the biggest ones. Second one, I think this one's something I'm a bit better at. Reading the air, hopefully.
Yeah. That's very important.
Hopefully. I mean, I guess that's why they hired me. So that one, when we say reading the air, there's many ways to describe it. But then recently, one of the best descriptions I like, at least in terms of reading the air or kuki yomiru, is solve the problem before it becomes a problem.
Right.
So knowing preemptively an issue you might create, and don't let it enter the picture in the first place.
So anticipating the people around you's needs and kind of being proactive in helping them out.
Their needs, or vice versa, how you might positively, needs would be positively affecting them, but then also how might you negatively affect them? What kind of difficulties might you bring to their table? So for example, hiring a foreigner. Beforehand, you should already be ready to tell your manager, I'm really sorry, but could you help me in Shinagawa, the immigration office, things like that. Just give them a heads up, and generally, at least from my experience, they become much more receptive if you're kind of bringing that approach that I know this might cause a problem, but I really need this kind of help, that kind of communication. So language, I guess reading the air, and what else? I think the third one, and I think this one's the most important, and this is how I think I got hired, is know that you're not Japanese. Some people want to blend to the point that they think they're Japanese. Of course, it's good to pick up cultural, parts of the host country you're living in. But no, you will never be Japanese. That's not your advantage in this country. Your advantage will always be, what are you bringing from your home country? What knowledge and experience are you bringing from your home country into Japan that they will find valuable?
Right.
So I think that's how I got.
And what is the outside perspective that you've brought that you think is valuable to your company?
Apart from, how would I say it, what do you call it? Not really aggressive way of communication. I wouldn't say
direct,
that.
maybe.
Maybe direct is one way to put things. Coming from my home country, I think one thing that's very different in Japan is there's a notion of karoshi from a long time ago, which is work to death. Right now, Japan, I think, is in a state wherein they're really decreasing that. They're really working towards making more companies. They call it black or white company. So more towards cleaning up their acts, basically.
Right.
Thing is, in my home country, we do everything to make sure that we hit our targets. To the point that sometimes, if I'm creating presentations, my manager will have to ask me, Chow, no need for 100. 90 is okay. Yeah. But then for me, I understand he's saying that, but I can't, coming from where I come from, I can't accept 90. I need to do at least 100. So I think that thing that I bring back from home, although it doesn't match the local, work ethic, it is, I think, still an advantage for me, at least, that I bring to Japan.
Yeah, that you can going above and beyond and doing the things that need to be done.
Because this blends into, how do you call this? I wouldn't say, it's a mixture of critical thinking and creative thinking, I guess. Wherein, if I have a problem, yes, I do ask for help, but I try to find first, okay, before I bother anyone, on my own, what can I do? Who can I ask guidance from? does it always have to be my manager? Maybe there's another HR person from another company that I could get advice from. Okay, this is the solution. Okay, how do we make it work? And sometimes there are employees in Japan who aren't able to do that because they're focused on a different kind of working culture. They tend to do membership style rather than job type.
When you say membership style versus job type style, could you expand on what that means?
It's a very, I would say right now, Japan-based working culture, but it comes more from the manufacturing industry. It started from there. Job type is traditionally, now especially in the job market globally, you are hired for your job,
right?
For your like specific skill set, like whether it's video editing, coding, knowledge of HR, knowledge of finance, whatever. That's how the rest of the world does it.
Right.
Japan's a bit special. Japan, when they hire you as a fresh grad, you're zero.
Right.
No matter what degree you take, you are a fresh grad.
Yeah.
You will maybe try HR, you might try finance, you might try sales, you might try all of these functions, and they rotate you through the company. Because you're not there for the job. You're not an HR person, you're not a finance person. You're a member of the company. And as a member, they will move you through, the organization and develop you that way.
Right.
So that's why when it comes to this, I mentioned a while ago, creative thinking and like critical thinking, the reason why it might be a bit difficult for some of them to have this is because they're used to this rotation. That, eventually I will be rotated to a place where I might get the information I need down the line. As compared to as early as now.
Right.
I need to become an expert at this. And maybe my manager doesn't know how to do this thing, or maybe this executive doesn't know how to do this thing. So for me, that is an advantage, at least within this job market. Why I said also manufacturing is because it works a lot in manufacturing companies, like in factories especially, because you start off maybe down the line, fixing things up, and then eventually you will learn and move up. So it works back then. It still works for some Japanese companies, but they're learning to blend it now.
Right.
I think that's a big evolution that's happening right now.
Yeah. I do think that it's more common now than it was 10, 20 years ago for people to, switch companies. I want to circle back to your experience at GLOBIS. How did studying here help to evolve your kokorozashi or personal mission?
I think one of the reasons why I really like that question is because yesterday I was having a chat with the HR of a GLOBIS professor. We were just doing HR talk, talking about the market, whatever. And like she said, "Oh, Joao, like maybe you learned all of these skills from your previous job or something like that." I said, "No, to be honest, a lot of the business thinking that I have now is thanks to GLOBIS." And it's these business thinking skills that also help me kind of build that kokorozashi, help me understand my kokorozashi. Because GLOBIS not just develops those business skills, but then it slowly ties it into the kokorozashi. And this kind of development journey that I was going through, at least in GLOBIS, and I'm still going through with GLOBIS sometimes, helped me eventually write it, especially because they give you time to think about it.
Yeah.
I think that's one of those. We normally don't have this, like, just time to pause and look at a piece of paper and say, what's my personal mission?
Yeah. I mean, it's such an important thing. You should take your time to do it, right?
So, but we don't.
Yeah.
Who goes around like in a normal day and just decides to think, I'll spend this 30 minutes to think about my personal mission.
Yeah.
We don't do that.
Yeah.
And GLOBIS gives us that time, I think.
Yeah, I think that's so valuable. And you also mentioned that the alumni were what brought you in, and you're still in communication. How do you maintain those networks and those relationships?
Mainly, apart from the big GLOBIS, so GLOBIS normally has networking sessions wherein most of the time I would see other like alumni that I enjoy talking to, that I'm friends with, the network I have, and I'm able to at least maintain that network as well. But of course, some of the other alumni, we have our own groups.
Right.
Like we go out for like Lunar New Year, we go out for lunch, we spend Christmas together sometimes. I think like some of them are about to become like ninong ninang, what's the English word? godfather, godmother in my wedding.
Oh wow!
Things like
wow,
that.
incredible.
So, it's I guess it's a part. Part of it is Globis has these networking events, but apart from these networking events, at least for me, I did find friends who I think will be my friends for the rest of my life.
Oh, excellent! That's a beautiful story. This is a question we ask all of our guests. If you could go back in time and give your younger self advice on the future based on what you know now, what would it be?
What advice would I give my younger self? Apart from maybe spend a bit more time studying Japanese. I think that's a big one. I think apart from that one, within GLOBIS at least, I think take more time in it, like live in it a bit more.
What do you mean by that?
I have a lot of good memories, at least from the time that I was here. I graduated, and like I always look back at those memories, like hanging out with friends, whatever, drinking, you know, running through the streets of like I don't know, Shibuya, Roppongi, whatever, like all of that stuff. And now that I'm working again, you know, after like it's been 5 years, I think, and like I do look fondly back on those times. And part of me just wishes like I don't know, within those short few like 1 year, that short 1 year, I spent more time with them,
right?
Or I spoke more with them, or at least I maybe not even spoke with them, just like I was there more with them, rather than I don't know,
Like
running,
hustling.
hustling.
Yeah. I think that's powerful. Yeah. One other thing, you mentioned studying the Japanese. How's that going? It seems like it's an underestimated requirement for living in Japan.
So I was lucky to be hired without Japanese. Lucky at the same time, I did work quite hard for the company to prove to them that they should hire me, even without Japanese. But at least for me, I knew even back then I wanted to live in this country a long time. Even before I moved here, I was like, I need to learn Japanese. That was already something in my mind. But then the amount of seriousness I put into it was not a lot until recently. Only recently did I start taking 2 night classes a week, 2 hours like every week. You know.
Oh wow, that's quite a commitment.
2 hours, so total 4 hours per week, 2 night classes per week, total, since October. So it's not quite long. I'm sure it's gonna keep going on. And I'm also, I think, a bit lucky because those night classes are not paid for by me.
Oh,
They're paid for by the company.
That's a great perk.
So I was really happy. They said like, Joao, you know, do you want to study Japanese? I was like, yeah, I've always wanted to study Japanese. It's just I'm focusing on work. Like, okay, but then if we pay for it, you have to do it, okay? Like,
yeah,
pay
of course.
for it then. Thank you. Wonderful.
Yeah.
So yeah, that one within, I think, how long has that been? Right now it's February. It's just been, I think, 4 months. In these past 4 months, I think my Japanese has improved so much more.
Oh, excellent.
Than 5 years I've been in this country.
I mean, you know, who would know that studying is the way to learn?
Exactly. You think you could learn it just from, I don't know, watching anime, walking around the street, speaking to people in the convenience store.
If only.
No, you have to study.
Yeah, unfortunately.
You really have to just sit down and study.
Wow. All right. Well, thank you so much for
Thank you,
talking with
Kingsley.
us. It was
Thank you.
wonderful
It was
speaking
nice
with you.
meeting you.
And thank you to the audience for listening.